can, you will. Have faith in yourself. The word you has power in it. You can, you will. Have faith in yourself. The word you has power in it.
Well, good morning. It's yet another beautiful week, and I'm glad that I could be here to make sure that we take you through the days or what it is that you expect throughout the day on a very beautiful morning. And importantly, I'm glad that you could be part and parcel of this, as always, keeping it Home of Untold Stories, that is TV 47. Let's get to see what the day has in store for us, even as we look forward to an incredible week ahead. My name is Linda Alela. This is Morning Cafe, as always, every other day of the week, Monday to Friday. I'm always here 6 a.m. all the way to 9 a.m. as we look at what has happened over the weekend, the state of the nation in terms of current affairs, what is happening across the world, what has been prepared by my team, what the papers detail, and importantly, we also go outside and, we get into the social life, into the lifestyle aspect, understanding matters health, matters relationships, matters finances. And this morning we'll be getting into the world of beauty, but also in a healthy way. And so we'll also be giving you tips of how to look good. What are some of the processes that you are supposed to go through to ensure that your skin is perfect? So make sure that you keep it right here. We have lots lined up for you, and like I said, it's always a pleasure doing it. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV 47KE. Tell us what it is that is happening around you, what you think we need to discuss, and also be part and parcel of the discussions of the day. Remember, like I said earlier on, it is state of the nation. We look at all the politics. What is happening with BBI at a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta has officially said, let's close all the sessions in Parliament. What does it mean? Does it alter the process? We'll be looking at that. Importantly, we'll be looking at the formations that are likely to culminate right after the BBI sails through. But will it sail through? Also, the Supreme Court argues that this process of a referendum will not be conducted in the country until that time when we have all the 7 cases that lie on their head, on the head of the BBI, are listened to and deliberated on. So all this, what does it mean? And the coming in of these coalitions, what are the possibilities of a Raila-Ruto coalition? What are the possibilities that the One Alliance coalition is likely to actually counter what it is that the DP is affronting, that is in the hustler narrative? All this we discuss right here alongside my guest, Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. We'll be having Dr. Barak Muluka as always, and the Speaker for Nyeri County, that is John Kagusha. Indeed, an incredible show lined up for you, so make sure that you keep it right here as I take you through. First, what is in the papers? We have the People Daily, we have the Daily Nation, and yes, that's what we'll be looking at this morning. And so here we are with the Daily Nation. Front page of the Daily Nation, Uhuru under pressure to ease pain. What pain is this that we're talking about? Intense lobbying for the head of state to make sure that he eased some of the COVID-19 lockdown measures announcement, or those ones that he announced on Friday. And tourism sector players, they say that the containment measures, will put them to risk, or has already put them to about 1.3 million jobs at risk, and suggest that a lesser punitive safety plan should be incorporated to save this likely to dwindle or already dwindling sector. That is a story captured on page 4 and 5. Just how best will the people welcome this? Many have argued that, well, indeed, the measures are worth towards ensuring that we have a healthy nation, but that is not what it is that plays out right now, especially when the economy is hugely damaged. And there we are. We'll be looking at that also. We get to have the view of the guests that we have on board in regards to this. What do they think? Do they suggest, or do they suppose that indeed that was a good move by President Uhuru Kenyatta? Some of the areas or the sectors that have been hugely affected, that is the tourism sector, and the transport sector. The income and that is the Federation of Employers says that impact of the lockdown will be immediate, far-reaching to matters income and how people are able to get these monies. And well, the aspect of sports also has been hugely affected, and not to forget matters education. Students sent home at schools, or as schools, colleges and universities close indefinitely. What does it mean? Well, we can only wait to see at this point when the numbers continue to go high on matters COVID-19. Well, yesterday a slight decrease from what has been the previous week. But then again, the question is just what then needs to be done to ensure that we create that balance, that as we take care of our lives, we also don't forget to ensure that, the activities in the country are moving for the benefit of the people. Blow to rilers as BBI runs into fresh turbulence. That's a story that has been captured on page 10. The new containment measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 that were announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta on Friday will equally affect the timelines for the BBI, and that is in regards to when the referendum, or whether the referendum will be conducted, deadline, or dealing a fresh blow to its chief proponent, ODM leader Raila Odinga. Well, yesterday at a meeting of the House Joint Justice and Legal Affairs Committee considering the Constitution of Kenya, failed to take off under unclear circumstances. That's a story captured on page 10. Remember, the hearing was supposed to be done on the 1st of April, just to, for these committees to present the document. And therefore, this means that there are likelihoods that such will be altered. Equally, not forgetting that declaration by the Supreme Court. And so we will also be discussing this later on the broadcast. Matters are, still, of course, on how the churches have been affected, or maybe the places of worship have been, affected hugely. And well, Christians marked Palm Sunday and across the country. Well, they took into the feast of commemorating, but of course in a different way in comparison to what played out last year. As of course, most of them were not allowed to be in church. A story captured on page 17. So in their own respective places at home, online, following the proceedings in their different churches. And exams expose full crisis of schoolgirl pregnancies. We also discussed this sometimes last week, painting a terrible picture of what, the country is like, or the society is like, at a point where most of the students actually had to sit for their exams while pregnant, some of them just after giving birth, some of them, going to give birth, at a time when the examinations were still ongoing. And a lot of, questions being raised as to how best we can ensure that we protect the girl child. The ongoing four exams have equally exposed the depth of the teen pregnancies, or the pregnancy crisis that sits here, and with hundreds of candidates sitting their papers in maternity wards. Well, the Education Ministry is yet to reveal the number of pregnant teens, but checks in individuals' counties indicate that thousands of schoolgirls could soon be mothers. What does that mean? Well, but importantly is the fact that they have been allowed an environment that is friendly enough for them to be able to proceed and, sit for their respective examinations, something that, very many people have lauded. But even questions continue to be raised as to how best they can be gotten to that point where, they do not feel comfortable, or girls do not feel comfortable that after all, they'll be allowed that environment to proceed and do their examinations and, enjoy life just like any other girl. Because then in a huge way, they say this would be a catalyst to more cases. Another big story here, 1 million Kenyans could get COVID-19 by June. A story captured on page 6, and researchers say peak will be in April. So remember to make sure that you keep the guard high, keep a social distance, wash your hands always, sanitize if you're not close to water and soap, and importantly, have your mask on. All these guidelines set, while they could be tough, are necessary for us to be able to deal with such. And 5G network answers to your pressing questions. A story captured on page 3. You need to also look at that. Yes, if you're a lover of technology, you know very well how instrumental this would be in terms of creating that growth. And meanwhile, as we get a hold of the people daily as it opens up, Let's see what is captured on page 2. When life gives you lemons, you use that to create or to make lemonade. Well, the tough times, the situations that are here, and you are advised that, well, in as much as it's hard, make sure that you go out of your way to make it easy for yourself. Just get creative, do something different. It does not cost you anything. It's never that serious after all, in as much as the times are tough. Homeboys fined about 1 million in a talk show controversy. This is a story that has been ongoing for the better part of the weekend. And yes, the aspect of gender balance or gender violence, or I mean, the aspect of gender is out here as we get to just have answers. Now, the Communications Authority of Kenya has fined Radio Africa's group, Homeboys Radio, about 1 million and suspended a controversial morning show for 6 months. And there you go. It's incumbent upon us to be careful and to be sensitive, especially when we're addressing these matters of society. And so that is also something that we've been following up. And the question is just there, how balanced are we in some of the debates that we conduct? It's a developing story. We keep pondering on the same and people weighing in their respective sentiments. To the People Daily, Tuju wants 6 senators struck off list after tribunal nod. A story captured on page 16, still in regards to the jumbles within the Jubilee Party. And we'll be following up on that later on as we proceed with the broadcast. Spain in rush for lockdown deadline. Public transport vehicle raised fares threefold after this desperate commuters mob and termini to travel to or out of restricted zone. A story captured on page 3, 4, and 5. And about 130,214 total cases of COVID-19 that have been registered so far, and recovered or recoveries stand at 91,754, and deaths stand at 2,117, while the numbers that were tested, about 1 million there, about 468 and 835. Those are the cases as it stands in the country so far. And we'll be looking at that, the ramifications of the orders that were given by President Uhuru Kenyatta and what needs to be done to avoid such occurrences. Handshake is as strong as ever, Oburu Odinga tells Raila's base. That's a story captured on page 2. We'll be looking at this and, I mean, the talks of the coalitions that are set to come up and just how likely is President Uhuru Kenyatta to support the Right Honorable Raila Odinga in the event that he declares his presidential bid. And there you go. Nzoia MD has 14 days to pay farmers. Sugarcane farmers contracted by Nzoia Sugar Company have given the managing director, Michael Makoha, about 14 days for them to be paid, led by Nzoia Outgrowers Company. The chairman, that is Christopher Sifuna. The farmers say they had not been paid for about 7 months now, just also painting a picture of how the situation is dire in the agricultural sector in the country and just how best this can be handled. Questions are raised as to the same. Also on this one, Homeboys Radio fined 1 million. Breakfast show suspended for 6 months. We've also touched on that, and so much so that has been captured, more or less the same stories as, of course, the Daily Nation. This one here, State launches guide to curb violent extremism in schools. Education Ministry security agencies say that rules to help teachers to detect, prevent radicalization as cases continue to rise. Also something that is indeed cause for alarm and needs to be addressed, coming at a time when the Ministry of Interior has given that order that the Dab and Kakuma be closed indefinitely. I mean, we'll also be getting to hear what it is that the panelists have to say as to that. Let's drop the newspaper review for a moment and look at what the roads are saying this morning, or, you know, what the situation is like down there. Evidently, no cause for alarm. Let's see whether we have a clear picture of what is happening on the roads so that you are updated. And here we are. Let's look at the key roads and those ones that have some level of alarm. This is Mombasa Road from around Imara there. and around Cabanas, you can evidently tell that there is traffic all the way down Samia Park, Cabanas, and coming down to these sides. As you're getting yourself into the city, you evidently realize that there's some bit of traffic, not really some bit, it's a bit heavy, and traffic is not looking so good this morning on Mombasa Road. And so if you're taking Mombasa Road, you know what it is that you expect as you take this direction. Let's see, here we are. That is Mombasa Road, and going all the way down as you find yourself into the city, you find some bit of traffic. You come and connect to these sides of the Southern Bypass. The Southern Bypass has some tenets of traffic somewhere there, but it is moving not as bad. And you connect to the likes of Likoni Road. Likoni Road is pretty much of an ease this morning, as you can see. So no cause for alarm if you're taking Likoni Road. This is around Bellevue Estate, that is still on Mombasa Road going down. This is Piponi Road all the way to South Sea, not looking bad this morning. Capital Center, and going all the way down to the roundabout is evidently not as bad. And I mean, as you get to connect there, that's where you get some tenets of traffic, but it is not bad. It is moving. This is Langata Road. No cause for alarm along Langata Road this morning. It looks pretty good. And so if you're taking Langata Road all the way here, you need not to worry. And down here, you can see Bunyala Road, which is also not as bad this morning. Around Bunyala Road all the way, it does not look bad this morning. So if you're taking that direction, you need not to worry. And these are the sides. Dunga Road, equally not looking so bad. Down Lusaka Road, as you come to connect, you find some tenets of traffic there, but then it eases up. Let's look at a different direction and see whether there is a cause for alarm on this other side. Landis Road here, Jogoro, as you come to connect with the Jogoro Road. Yes, there's some tenets of traffic on Landis Road that is a bit heavy, and as you can realize, when you come to connect to the roundabout, it's a bit heavy. And so if you're taking that direction, you expect some traffic down there going to Jogoro Road. Jogoro Road is not as bad this morning. It's a Monday morning in most cases. You'd expect the roads to be bad, and especially when the weather is not as friendly. And there you go. And so Jogoro Road is not looking so alarming this morning. Let's look at a different direction, see whether there's somewhere else that could be requiring our attention, somewhere around Isili, all the way down. Not much of traffic. Let's look at Thika Road. Yes, Thika Road, in most cases you'll find traffic, but it's also not so bad this morning just yet. Maybe it's because it's still an early morning. This is Thika Road, and going down to drive-in, I mean, evidently pretty much of an ease this morning, and all the way to the Kenya Utalii College and down. Somewhere around Pangani, as you get to the city, is where you find traffic, which is a bit jammed up. It's heavy, as you can see. The maroon, or technically heavy red color there, tells you that yes, the traffic as you get into the city from Thika Road is not looking so good, and so you should brace yourself for that. Outer Ring Road on this other side is pretty much of an ease from Allsops and going down, and to and from Allsops is evidently not looking so bad this morning. And going all the way down as you connect to Airport Road, Airport Road is much of an ease this morning, as you can see, so no cause for alarm. And that is along Embakasi as you get to connect to those sides of Cabanas. Let's look at a different direction altogether. Kangundo Road is looking all good this morning. These sides of Dandora, evidently not much of worry. Let's look at a different direction altogether. These sides of Limuru Road. Limuru Road is an ease this morning, so you need not to worry if you're taking Limuru Road, as you can evidently see. And as you also get to connect to the Northern Bypass, which doesn't look so bad this morning. These sides of Muthaiga Road, this is Limuru Road, not so bad this morning. And coming to these other sides, Lower Kabete, you can tell that there's not much of traffic. And coming to these sides where there is Wayaki Way, really not much of traffic. This is James Gishuru, and this is the ABC place going down to Wayaki Way, evidently not looking bad this morning. And so, yes, around Westlands, Parklands, where it is that we are, some tenets of traffic here as you're coming to town from this direction of Muthaiga Road and Kiambu Road. And so that's more like it as you get to connect to Thika Road. So, well, there's not much for us to look at in regards to traffic. In the event that something plays out, I'll be here to update you. Now, let's look at the day's diary. There'll be mega updates on the oxygen consumption and status of medical equipment in ICU during the corona period. And so we'll be following up on these updates. We'll have our health reporter Zainab following up on the same. The groundbreaking ceremony of the construction of the ultra-modern security command center, the Konza Technopolis, will be presided over by Cabinet Secretaries Dr. Fred Matiang'i and Joe Musheru. And yes, also a couple of events that will play out in terms of news. We'll be having our reporters on ground to capture that for you. Now let's look at what my team has prepared. And Nairobi, many Kenyans were in the rush to the villages following the government's extension of the expiry of the deadline, that is to move into and out of the 5 counties and a cessation of movement. Travelers across the country faced a rough time as they hurriedly traveled into and out of the now COVID-19 infected areas. And Kilemi with the details.
Scenes that were all too familiar in almost every bus terminal in the country. Passengers were stranded as they waited to travel into and out of what is now referred to as COVID-19 infected counties. Many did not know whether they would reach their destinations before the curfew hour.
Hadi sasa sijapata gari hata na siteseka nitafika Kisumu saa ngapi.
So the bus that I got and booked, apparently it wasn't there. So we have to wait, and we paid 3,000 shillings.
Students from colleges and universities pitched camp at various bus terminals with the hope that bus fares would go down, but that too did not happen.
We tried to negotiate for a fair price, but they were told no. It's either 3,000 or nothing, so it's very expensive.
Nikijaribu kuangalia gari, sipati fare nayo imeongezeka maradufu na huwa tunapanda ni 1,000 kufika Kakamega.
The situation was the same for passengers traveling from up country to the city.
Nilikuwa naenda Nairobi, lakini tunapata ya kwamba tuko na shida mingi. Tunasema transport kwenda Nairobi 14,000.
Sasa nashindwa mbona president anatufanya hivi.
Many Kenyans expressed their dissatisfaction in what they termed as abrupt decisions by President Kenyatta in containing the spread of COVID-19 infection.
And I think sometimes the government should consult. The government should consult, and maybe public participation is important in some of these decisions that the government takes.
Hata ukituangalia penye tuko hapa sasa hii ni corona style. Penye tuko tu hapa sasa hii. Hakuna wani meet hapa. Sababu ya nini? Watu ni wengi. Lakini ungepatiana siku 3, at least kila mtu angekuwa anajipanga anaenda polepole kwa stare zake. Watu tukae gari kawaida wani meet na usafiri uishe.
The directive by President Kenyatta to cease movement into and out of what is now referred to as the COVID-19 infected zones has thrown travelers into limbo, with the public transport sector taking advantage of their desperation. Andrine Kilemi, TV47, Nairobi.
Still on that, the effects of President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on the closure of all bars and takeaway services only in restaurants in the 5 counties that were declared COVID-19 red zone areas are being felt deeply. A spot check across various bars and restaurants in Nairobi show that just how many business owners have been forced to completely shut down operations of their businesses, thus rendering an unknown number of people jobless. Here is Ruth Mulandi with that story.
That the operations of bars is suspended in the counties of Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu, and Nakuru.
This announcement by President Uhuru Kenyatta Friday was the beginning of tough times to come for many bar owners as their operations had been crippled now that Kenyans were not allowed to sit and enjoy their favorite drinks at their favorite joints. A spot check across the city showed a painful reality where many Kenyans were again forced to rethink how to earn a living as most bars were locked and with no signs of any activity. Being a Sunday, many Kenyans would be found in these bars catching up with their friends and families before beginning their week. This closure of the bars translates to the massive loss of jobs. The employees now forced to seek employment elsewhere or totally rethink how to earn a living. But bars are not the only businesses suffering following Uhuru's directive.
That all restaurants and eateries in the counties of Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu, and Nakuru shall provide takeaway services only.
A spot check across various restaurants and little to no customers could be seen in their premises. This once upon a time sitting area was now empty, with chairs overturned on top of tables. All measures and protocols observed, with clear signage at every entrance that only takeaways were being issued. The directive to have bars closed and restaurants operate on takeaway services only was as a result of a high positivity rate of coronavirus within 5 counties identified as red zones for the virus.
These are indeed tough times, with businesses crippled indefinitely and a country already suffering economically, all in an effort to flatten the curve, and Kenyans forced to tighten their belts. Ruth Mulandi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thanks, Ruth. Now, the enforcement of President Uhuru Kenyatta's new directives to curb the spread of the third wave of coronavirus kicked off in the 5 counties that were marked as COVID-19 infected zones. At least 30 people were arrested flouting COVID-19 protocols in Kiambu and are set to be arraigned in court today.
President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on cessation of movement into and out of 5 counties of Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu and Nakuru took effect from 8 p.m. this evening to curb the spread of coronavirus following the elapse of the extended travel time. Police officers have mounted roadblocks in a bid to enforce the curfew. Police in Kikuyu and Kabete sub-county in Kiambu last night arrested more than 30 people for defying the directives. Kabete police commander says they will be arraigned in court tomorrow.
Well, we have managed to arrest 23 people for violation of curfew. We have impounded 11 motorcycles and 10 motor vehicles. These ones will be arraigned in court on 29th. That is on Monday, 29th of March 2021.
Kiambu County Police Commander Ali Nuno has appealed to the employers to release their staff early from their workstations in order to comply with the newly imposed government curfew.
And I want to appeal to the employers. They are keeping the employees at the workplace up to late in the evening. According to the orders, by 8, the curfew orders will take effect. So people are taking a long way to travel back home. And I'm appealing to the employers to release their employees in good time so that they can meet the deadline.
Along the boundaries of Machakos County, GSU officers took charge of implementing the curfew regulations along the BC Mombasa Nairobi highway.
Matatu wengine wakati walisikia road block iko hapa, walikuwa wanashukishia watu mbali sana kwa msitu, watu wanapita kwa msitu. But tumejaribu kuwafuata huko, tukawaelezea hatuna ubaya, ni sisi nikuwaelezea ile kitu inatakikana mfanye as kuanzia vile ilitangazwa na president.
Machakos County Governor Alfred Mutua met the County Security Committee led by Area Commissioner Frederick Ndunga for a review how they shall enforce the regulations. In a joint address after their meeting, the county commissioner warned police officers against being compromised in the new enforcement and urged residents to follow the set protocols.
Let that message go very clearly to our officers, that if we shall find that you are the weak point in enforcement, we shall request you to be aside.
Bodaboda zetu, kama unaendesha baiskeli ama unaendesha pikipiki ya bodaboda, usitumike kama mtu wa kutumiwa kupitia panya routes.
Meanwhile, the Akorino Church says the new measures where church services have been shut down has greatly harmed their way of worship, especially on the Kigosho dance. They are now asking the government to reopen church services, saying the church is ready to observe the given guidelines in their services.
Wakorino tunapenda kigosho, tunapenda kugosha sana, lakini kigosho yetu hatuwezi gosha tukiwa mtu mmoja.
Joash Onsare, TV47.
Now to politics. Deputy President William Ruto is a man under siege, this time taking a shot at removing him from the party's deputy party leader position. But President Uhuru Kenyatta, observers say that they have discovered a better way to tame his over-ambitious deputy, strengthening rival parties within their home grounds to clip the DP's political influence. Tonight, this is what was captured tonight by our very own team in regards to the game plan of matters 2022. And let's look at the politics of the impeachment motion against Deputy President William Ruto.
The rift within the Jubilee Party has widened by the day, and the son of the Rift Valley region, Deputy President William Ruto, is the target on the bullseye, at least according to his allies. When the ruling Jubilee Party was campaigning for the 2013 and 2017 presidential elections, Ruto was President Uhuru Kenyatta's favorite before he was accused of early campaigns and undermining his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Again, a first in Kenya's history. Kenya has not had to import a single grain.
A few years down the line, and Kenyatta's once political soulmate has been sidelined for his political ambitions to inherit his boss next year, with some referring to the political storm within Jubilee as just sibling rivalry, and though unofficial, the deputy president has been fired, at least as the Jubilee deputy party leader.
Ni mambo ambayo inafanywa kwa sababu ya roho mbaya ama kuonea mwingine wivu jinsi anavyotembea katika nchi. Unajua sisi kama wa Kenya huwa tunapenda wale viongozi ambao wanafikia wananchi katika mashinani na kujua shida zao. Na pengine hao walipoona kwamba pengine naibu wa rais anafikia wananchi katika maeneo mashinani, kwa wao wakaona kwamba anajiundia sana sifa.
Hii yote ni siasa ya kuhakikisha kwamba kwa sababu hako na ile support ya watu na watu wanamwamini na watu wanataka wanaendelea kumuunga mkono katika Jamhuri ya Kenya na katika na jamii zote, unaona kwamba wanajaribu mbinu yote ya kujaribu kumtupa kando.
Naibu wa rais alitengwa kwa serikali ya Jubilee tangu mwaka wa 2018. Alitengwa wakati kuna mabroka ambayo waliingia katika chama cha Jubilee, ndio walienda wakaanza kumadvise rais vibaya.
There were moves or suggestions that he should be removed as leader, deputy leader of the party, Jubilee, and that was done, as far as I understand. Of course, is it final? There are still procedural issues.
But the mighty and powerful along the corridors of Jubilee House are not done just yet. The party is considering to table an impeachment motion against Ruto, an idea that was suggested by ANC's Lugari Member of Parliament Ayub Savula about 2 months ago. Although Savula claims over 126 Jubilee-allied members of Parliament have so far signed the proposal, the plans to get rid of Ruto as second in command is believed to be a political baffle.
Impeaching the DP is a tall order. Marshalling the numbers to impeach the DP is a tall order.
See, the first question is, how many members of parliament does ANC have? So, and that is the mathematics that whoever is planning this impeachment needs to even before you think about whether the motion will pass or not, you need to think, what will that do politically?
But proving the grounds on which Ruto should be impeached could prove difficult for the Jubilee-allied legislators. According to the Constitution, a deputy president can be removed from office if he or she has violated the Constitution, committed a national or international crime, or for gross misconduct.
You remember when the Member of Parliament for Nyali tried to impeach CS Macharia, his impeachment, even though he had garnered the requisite signatures to impeach the CS transport infrastructure, but the Speaker threw out his motion because even though he had attached papers, evidence, in the manner he failed to explain in the manner in which he got those evidence, because you must get those evidence through a credible source, through a legal process. So it's not just about marshalling the numbers, but it's about also getting the evidence, to impeach the deputy president.
But the fact that there was that move to remove him from his position as deputy leader of the party speaks volumes that his fate and his influence across the country in terms of political influence is being limited, and he looks increasingly isolated. He's an isolated man.
Although it would be expected that getting impeached would work against him in the race to State House next year, an impeachment could be a blessing in disguise for Deputy President William Ruto.
In fact, in my view, if we want to really clip the wings of the Deputy President and continue keeping him in government, because that way he will be related with both the successes and the failures of that government. But if you kick him out, then he will ride on the development record and blame everyone else on the problems.
The situation between the president and the deputy president is a constitutional one. It's not a party issue anymore. The party can be dealt that way. But removing him from the office of the deputy president raises constitutional challenges which may have to be addressed by the court.
Hata akiondolewa leo, nataka niwahakikishe kwamba leo akiondolewa atakuwa mjenga, bado akimwacha mjenga. Kwa hivyo lote mawili kumuondoa ama kumwachia bado tu yatarashajijenga. But President Uhuru Kenyatta has portrayed his political wits to downplay his deputy's growing influence across the country with his hustler narrative, in a move that has been largely said to be a tactical plan to limit Ruto's ambitions to have a national party. President Kenyatta met coastal governors Ali Hassan Joho of Mombasa, Kwale's Salim Mvurya, and Kilifi's Amason Kingi. The meeting happening on the same day the DP met a section of members of parliament from the region at his current home. Kingi has been pushing for a coastal political outfit, and if Kwale Governor Salim Mvurya, who is Ruto's point man at the coast, joins hands with his coastal counterparts, analysts believe that Ruto will lose his bargaining powers in the race to conquer the ODM-dominated region. President Kenyatta has recently embarked on strengthening regional political parties, including Musalia Mudavadi's ANC and Moses Wetangula's Ford Kenya in Western Kenya, Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Party in Ukambani, with Baringo Senator Gideon Moi's KANU targeted at dividing Ruto's Rift Valley backyard.
Hawa watu hawawezi kuunda chama ya kikabila kwa sababu kwa chama ya kitaifa because they are tribalists. There is no way unaweza kumwambia mmoja wao ati aache chama yake ya kabila yake awe katika chama ya kitaifa. Hawezi kukubali because in their mind they are tribal leaders.
And yes, there you go, is one of the things that we'll be discussing this morning, as the DP got into that point where he just realized that maybe Right Honorable Raila Odinga is not a dynasty anymore, and now hints at a possibility of him working together with Right Honorable Raila Odinga and many more in regards to the battles that he continues to face within the Jubilee Party. What way forward in terms of politics for the country is what we discussed this morning alongside Dr. Barak Muluka, who's a communications advisor, and Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who's a member of Parliament of Daragwa, as we await to get a hold of Honorable John Kagushia, Speaker, Nyeri County. And they are already here joining us via Skype. And good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Linda. I hope you can see us.
Yes, I can see the two of you very well, and I'm happy to have you on board. Sadly, COVID-19 would not allow you to be in studio, but all the same, the program has to continue.
Yes, nobody can stop reggae.
Is this reggae? Seems like the president is in a mission to stop reggae.
We have to stop excess of reggae.
Well, a huge proponent, or so to speak, and Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, is the president in a mission to stop reggae?
Well, I wouldn't want to talk about reggae and COVID at the same time. This is a very terrifying moment for us as a country.
Yeah.
Very worrying time when we have lost many of our friends and neighbors, constituents. A time to have them in mind and in prayers as we take on this morning discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But the morning discussion can also be reggae and not even COVID.
Well, in this case, this is our reggae, and the reggae has been on every other Monday.
When Muruka was away, he was doing quite a bit of reggae.
That should have been last week, yes.
We lost Whaler not so long ago, as we will remember.
All right.
And Whaler was a member of the original Whalers team that had Bob Marley,
yes,
Peter Tosh, and other reggae artists of yore. I think that was the last standing within that troop. But reggae goes on.
Indeed.
Reggae becomes an image for anything that people engage in. Really, they could say nobody can stop reggae.
Yes. And in this case, I agree. This is our reggae every other Monday. What did we say? Did we say every other Monday is not right?
Every Monday.
Every Monday. It should be every Monday. I always have that in mind. I'm sure very many people lose out on that. Probably Mheshimiwa has no idea about that. But anyway, we'll school him right after this. So, yes.
I hope I can get on board on that.
Would you do that? Would you take him to class for a moment?
Every other Monday.
Every Monday for reggae? Not in Moruka.
Means after intervals, you skip 1 week, then you come to the other Monday. So it's every other Monday. Well, that's what
every other Monday
language used to.
And so when we're talking about Monday, the particular Monday, then you should say every Monday, right?
Every Monday. Yes.
Okay, there you go, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to have you join us. And yes, our reggae continues. And here we are. We discuss the politics of the day. We do not forget to speak about that aspect that, seems like has been quashed officially, that we can now not be talking about a scenario where the DP is going to be rooted out as the deputy president of the party. But then again, still plans are there to ensure that, his plans for 2022 are scaffolded. And as many would argue, the president is focused on coming up or, boosting this coalition that is now known as the Kenya Alliance team, or better yet, the Cerelac team that comprises of Kalonzo Musyoka, comprises of KANU leader Gideon Moi, the ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, and Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula. One, what do you make of this, and why should it be a battle against the DP's interest for 2022 as opposed to being a battle that focuses on making sure that every other Kenyan or every other Kenyan gets that chance to good leadership? Let's go with you, Mheshimiwa.
One is to say that every other happening in the country, whether in form of management of the affairs of the country or political engineering that seem to be taking place, should not just be taken to be activities meant to either scuttle the political ambitions of the DP or any other person. The thing is that we have work to do, there is time to do it, and there is the way of doing it. And once we see people coming together, like we saw Musalia coming together with Kalonzo, Wetangula, and Gideon Moi, their desire to work together should not be seen to be a scheme against DP Ruto's political ambition. I mean, if that be the case, even his wheelbarrow movement is certainly against the political ambitions of the other. So I think political engineering by anybody should not be seen to be just one, like the target is William Samoei Ruto. I don't think so. We must have in mind that the president has a bigger agenda before him. He has the Big Four agenda. He has his term, which is coming to an end in another couple of months. And he has to continue working. And in that working, if it appears like if the outcome doesn't favor you, you shouldn't take that you are being targeted. So I don't take it like the activities of yesteryear or last week have anything to do with countering the DP Ruto's movement. I think he has his own tribulations. He will work through them. He's a politician like any other. And I expect to hear how he has recreated himself after the by-elections that seems to suggest that his movement had not quite, it has not quite percolated It's still something that we discuss, perhaps quite a bit of it still in stations, but it has not quite gotten to the people, because if that was the case, we would have seen a better showing during the by-elections.
All right. Well, this looks like crafting of the president, Daktari, and looking at the individuals that are on board, one would argue then it would be a perfect coalition in the sense that it will incorporate almost all the key regions that we always speak about, having President Uhuru Kenyatta in it, and the likelihoods of, this coming at a time when maybe the handshake then would still be strong. Then we'll have the Right Honorable Raila Odinga on board, and we'll also be looking at a scenario where President Uhuru Kenyatta met leaders from the coast, probably trying to woo them and also getting them joining into the coalition. But evidently, as to what it is that the allies of the Right Honorable argue, it looks like the president in a way is segregating the Right Honorable Raila Odinga from this particular equation. Of what ramifications would this be, and what would give him the confidence that this would be a great team to counter the so speaked about the force of the DP, who again Mheshimiwa argues is not the people they are trying to counter?
Thank you, Linda. Your question is rather long.
Yeah.
And with many facets, to the extent that it's a little difficult to know
what exactly. Okay. Can I rephrase that?
We'll zero in. But let me attempt to telescope it. You are looking at the president meeting the governors from the coast.
Yeah.
What this means for the 2022 elections relative to Deputy President William Ruto and relative to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who is also the ODM leader. I think one of the challenges we have in this country is that we are not able to interpret any happenings by the political leaders outside elections. And I think that is one of the reasons that the country is permanently in the election mode. If citizens wake up every morning to front page newspaper headlines that talk of nothing except who is competing against the other, 365 days a year, even when there's a major happening of global proportions, we must still squeeze the next election, which is 4 or 5 years away, on the front page. Then as a country, we will interpret everything within the narrow prisms of elections and political competitions, and who is winning and who is losing out. The president, as head of state and head of the national government, the executive, has got the responsibility to meet different people from different parts of the country, different leaders, to discuss with them different things. And the fact that they do not issue a communique after that, there's no official communication coming from State House saying that I met these people and we discussed the following. If at the very best we get a vague kind of communication that we discussed various matters of national import, then also on the other hand we are left to make those kinds of interpretations. But as Mheshimiwa from Ndaragwa, Jeremiah Kioni, says, it is actually limited and limiting to think that that can only be seen in terms of there is an alliance against the deputy president. It's his movement they are trying to curb. Or there's an alliance against the former deputy prime minister. That might be part of it. But I think there would usually be more import to meetings of this kind. We are talking about a president who is in what is usually called the lame duck season of his presidency, and therefore who would be thinking a lot more about the unfinished business. I want to believe that first and foremost, that was what they were discussing. Be that as it may, there's also the possibility that they could be talking about politics and how to cobble together winning formations. The notion of a coastal party is misplaced. It is misplaced in the sense that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 does not allow for the formation of regional parties, tribal parties, narrow parties, whether they are religious parties or they are tribal parties, or parties that define themselves as belonging to a specific region of the country. That is quite clear. It's also clear in the Political Parties Act 2011, as amended in 2017. And it would usually not be for the president to address that question of whether the party is regional or it is not. I've seen footage elsewhere suggesting that the president was reading the Riot Act to these leaders, telling them that you cannot form a regional party. The converse is also true. We are seeing some people saying that he's encouraging them to form a regional party. Eventually, it's the registrar of political parties who will decide about the compliance or lack of it within these formations. Very finally, what we are seeing is also a regrouping of KANU as we knew it in the past, that when you take the four One Kenya Alliance leaders, then you are seeing a renascent KANU that was there up to 2003, with the exception now that William Ruto is outside that formation. Remember, President Moi told us that KANU was going to rule this country for 100 years. So it's coming to almost 60 and counting, and it doesn't matter what the guys may be. It may be Mwai Kibaki, it may be Uhuru Kenyatta, until such a day as a rank outsider takes over the leadership of this country. We are KANU in its different guises, and sometimes I get a little amused whenever I hear people say, oh, during the wretched KANU regime, KANU goes on, nobody can stop reggae, apparently.
Well, let me hold my question for a moment, take a quick break, and come back with the very same point as we expound some more on that particular subject.
Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on the Throwdown, and I'll be showing you how to make this no-bake dessert. Quite easy no-bake desserts. The Scottish Cranachan and the apple crumble.
Umesimamia mfanyikazi hapo, hakuna maji imewekwa.
Yes.
ECF is East Coast Fever. ECF actually is carelessness. It's pricey, but it's sure bet.
It's sure bet.
Yeah.
Join us this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as we head to Machakos to learn all about small-scale dairy farming.
On the next episode of Garden of Eden.
There are thousands
red flags. And the thing is, you have an instinct, you have a gut, you know when something's off.
Should we get to a point where he says we are now dating officially, or how does our picture look like?
Nobody does that in this generation. You don't even ask a girl out anymore. You just sort of like, you know, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you know, because there's give and there's take.
Every Wednesday at 10 p.m. on the next episode of The Realtor.
We will talk about bungalows and lighting, how important it is to have the right light for your house.
I need to make my space look good. We see all these inspirations in the net and we want to do that.
That excitement of jumping to take something because you like it is what makes people go wrong. After that, you can resell your house or and enjoy your house and
at 7:30 on the next episode of The Grind.
My name is Robert Kanyoro. I'm a software developer. There is no generally a difference between a software developer and a software engineer. The skill that I came out with from the university is the one that is actually helping me even today. So you need the skill, not the papers.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on the Throwdown, and I'll be showing you how to make this no-bake dessert. Quite easy no-bake desserts. The Scottish Cranachan and the apple crumble.
Untold Stories.
Still with me, Dr. Barak Muluka, Communications Advisor, and Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Member of Parliament, Daragwa. Coming to you, Mheshimiwa, and Dr. Barak speaks of what it is that is enshrined in the Constitution that does not allow parties to come and be formed in form or, in line with certain regions. The DP says this: these other small parties are tribal groupings that do not pose a serious challenge to the growing of the Hustler Nation. Let's overlook that aspect of the growth of the Hustler Nation and pick this one that it speaks of parties that are tribal. Evidently, on numerous occasions that we've said, in as much as these parties have been formed as national outfits, in most cases they align themselves so much so, in line with the regions of the respective leaders of these particular parties. Are there not rules that, affirm or strengthen that aspect of saying that we cannot form parties based on regions?
No, let me agree with what Dr. has said, that actually in its entirety, Larry Dwyer to do so. He has completely set the record straight that our constitution does not allow for tribal parties. We have the Political Parties Act, amended 2017, that also frowns at any regional grouping or any party that is formed on religious basis. And the reasons why this was done, why it was put in the constitution, and why again with the neighboring statute, is to try and get people to think together, so that we can be able to address the national issues in a better. You are able to appreciate the presence of the other and the needs of the other. This country cannot be. You cannot just retreat to your own cocoon. And of course, one of the ways of attacking your opponents is to say that your party is a tribal party, or your party is formed by people coming from one region. These are statements that have been used before. We will expect to hear more of them going forward. But what is crucial for us to know is that last week there was a very crucial happening in the history of management of political parties. It's rarely that I've seen the political parties tribunal uphold a decision held by, passed by a party. I've always seen them challenging decisions made by political parties, and especially on disciplinary matters. While perhaps that is still going to be challenged a little later, maybe in the High Court or the Court of Appeal by the senators, what is telling is that it is time to stir up. I expect that in the coming days, and certainly by the time we are starting the campaigns for 2022, there are some political parties that are likely to have to be arraigned in court or taken to court by activists, by opponents who would want to challenge them on whether they are actually national parties or regional parties. It's not an easy thing to prove, but it will be something that those who control parties, who manage parties, must start being awake to. And you never know, you may end up derailing your political ambitions by the kind of party that you are in. So the claim by the DP that these are tribal parties, while it may not be factual, I think it's something that we all have to pay attention to, because it can actually be used against your career. And we need to pay attention to those provisions in the Constitution and also in the statutes. And as I've said, the Political Parties Tribunal was given more attitude, or is being given more attitude by the BBI. And I think we are moving a lot of the matters that were being held, being arbitrated by the IBC to the Political Parties Tribunal. So a little bit of tidying up the process. And when the process is tidied up, it means that we, the political players, must be thorough and more careful, and we must be diligent. We must be able to uphold the law. So I know the DP would want to throw that jab. And again, these are jabs we are going to see, and I expect them to respond in a given way. But even these alliances, the president must be seeing them for a different reason, as opposed to how you win the 2022. His is how can even this grouping help him deliver on his agenda. If I was in his shoes, I would be looking at a grouping that can help me deliver the BBI with less opposition, at a less cost, without polarizing the country in a big way. So any way of managing that process is still within his mandate to manage the country and bring it together and allow it to move on a little further. Of course, those of us who are looking at 2022, we have our agenda of winning elections. But as Barack said, it's important also for us to ensure that everything that happens is not tied to the next elections, because that's what we've been doing, I think, since 1992. Everything that we do is in line with the next elections. So immediately you lose, anything you say and you seen thinking, it's only interpreted in terms of what you want to do in the next election. That is not very healthy for the country.
All right. Well, Barack, coming in regards to the same point, do you suppose then that coalitions are safe havens for these particular parties that appear to be more regional? And another question that I would expect you to answer, I hope this one comes out clear. Do you suppose then it will be too early to argue that in a way the president is shortchanging Right Honorable Raila Odinga?
Thank you. The two questions, as you correctly observe, number one, in terms of coalitions between political parties should usually form themselves into coalitions around specific issues. And I do want to believe that there is a specific issue today, around which political parties may seek coalition, because the country looks like it is set on the road towards a referendum. And in that regard, political parties as vehicles of mobilization of public opinion and public decision making have every reason to seek to cohere within coalitions of the kind that we are seeing. And we have heard the leaders of these parties talking about the referendum. Of course, in that respect, therefore, we must ask your second question, that where does this seem to be leaving ODM and the leader of the ODM party? I place the dynamics and optics that we're witnessing today to the reality that there is a conflation between pursuit of delivering a victorious referendum on the one hand, and focus on 2022 politics on the other hand. And therefore, you start having what is often called in the language of engineering a rich mixture, where the engine oil and the waters, the coolant, seem to be meeting in a conflictual context. On the one hand, we want to stay together so that they could deliver a victorious referendum on the Constitution. On the other hand, they are also not forgetting the fact of the matter that they are also in competition against one another. And usually one would advise them, as has been often said, try to separate the issues. Try to separate the thought that this coalition is going to be about 2020. They keep on also as the owners of that profit and that coalition, saying things like we are united so that we can deliver victory in 2022 and continue to unite the country. In the long term, if they do not do these processes carefully, they are going to be further differences, further splits. No doubt, Raila Odinga is in a corner of his own, having previously been very loud and eloquent on demonizing the deputy president. I do not know whether he will be looking for him now that he seems to be finding himself in some dark corner somewhere. The other four, on the other hand, so we have their own internal dynamics. Which comes to shove, everyone will start saying, I'm the one. And it's clear whether there will be someone with a heart that is large and magnanimous enough to stand up and say, so and so Tosha. And even when they say so and so Tosha, it's not whether there will not be a Nyachae moment. Moment, we mean 2002.
Yeah.
Well, said of the people who met in Uhuru Park that Kibaki Tosha. And then the Nyachae moment happened. Mercifully, those who remained were big enough to carry. Finally, Linda and my brother, Honorable MP Fondaragwa, a presidential endorsement of anyone as his or her preferred successor is not necessarily a boost. Sometimes it takes away. Sometimes it is it spells doom. And we have seen that in this country. We have seen it elsewhere in other countries. Be careful also, as you tell that you think you have been endorsed by the president. That might just be the poisoned chalice in your lap.
All right. Well, Honorable, yes, I know you want to weigh in on that. And also on this one, just how instrumental is the word of the president, in shaping the 2022 politics, as you also respond to that?
Yes, allow me to just say that coalitions is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a very healthy thing in our country. And we've seen that when they have been well managed, we have had a lot of advantages. We have had peaceful movements. We have had better sense of feeling as national unity. We have had higher GDP, higher economic growth rates in the country. And even in terms of security and stability in the country, whenever we have had coalitions that have been well managed, those are some of the things that we have always achieved, as opposed to when we have one party that is running the country at the exclusion of everybody else. I will always be encouraged, or I will be happier when I see coalitions coming together, because they also help people feeling part and parcel of what we are doing as a country. So if going forward, I certainly expect more coalitions, and if BBI was to be passed by Kenyans, and I believe that they are going to pass it, it encourages, it brings the concept of coalitions even closer and makes it more real, and you have even something that you can aim to bargain for when you are getting into those parties. On the issue of shortchanging the former Prime Minister, that I don't see it happening. The reasons why there was a handshake, we already know it is a BBI, and we can actually see the process of the BBI coming to an end perhaps in another 2-3 months. Of course, thereafter is implementing what will have been passed during the referendum. I say this because I believe that Kenyans will give it a nod. So I don't see that issue of being shortchanged falling into play. Of course, the political opponents, those who've been campaigning against the BBI, would want to throw that in and perhaps make the ODM fraternity feel feel bad, and perhaps they would be trying to benefit maximally from it. But I've listened to the former Prime Minister, I've listened to His Excellency the President over time, and they've been very, very clear. And in fact, unlike in the past, they've been very clear. One is that this BBI thing had nothing to do with 2022. And unlike all the other constitutional movements that we have had in the country since 1992, nobody has managed to use the BBI to mobilize for 2022. The former Prime Minister has not used to mobilize for his 2022 ticket, and you remember he has not even said that he is running, but certainly his party will have a big role to play in 2022, like it has been the case, I think, since 1997. Again, those who are opposed to the BBI have tried to mobilize the no allowed it, and you can actually see a lot of chicaning from that platform because it has not been presented to them in that format. So this BBI movement might not just, it's not being useful for the 2022 elections. And I again must commend the president because he has managed to keep it fairly away from the 2022 campaigns. But you cannot, don't underestimate any of these politicians, including ourselves. We will try and make use of every opportunity that comes our way to advance our political career, our political desire, achieve the highest office that one can do, given the opportunities that are on the table. Or again, let me say this on the borrowing that Nyachai movement. Nyachai movement is now a reality in this country, and it comes about in this way. When you come to this table of coalitions, you have certainly to say, what are you bringing on board? And it has a lot to do, for now, it is really numbers, in terms of numbers, because why the Nyachai movement of 2002 happened is because his coming together with perhaps Laila Amolo Odinga then would not have produced the presidency. We would not have dethroned Kanu from power. So it is a game of the possibles, and that game of the possible, or the possibility, the game of what is possible is the game of what numbers can be added up to make sure that we are guaranteed of a win. Before, perhaps in the coming days, the coming years, when people then come to the table and we will align with a given coalition given on what do you start, what do you believe in, what ideology do you believe in. That may come much later. I hope Doctor will not be too old, because certainly his mind will really be useful in those moments. And I know he has tried this for many years. Now almost 15 years I've seen him, 15, 20 years, I've seen him struggling to get people to believe in something and to take something to Kenyans. But we have resisted that kind of push, and we are still going to resist it 2022. We want to work with numbers, unfortunately. But we will try and throw in a little bit of what we believe in, what we want to achieve, and what we would want the country to look alike after we have been in power again.
Dr. As you respond to that, would love for you to tell us, do you suppose then these politicians are being hypocritical when they argue that the BBI is not being used to advance their own political ambitions? That Right Honorable Raila Odinga can confidently say that I'll speak of my presidential ambitions or maybe my 2022 move right after the document has sailed through.
You are spot on, Linda. There is a lot of hypocrisy in these things. And my brother speaks a bit from the platform of selective amnesia, where he seems to be forgetting certain recent happenings. Or shall I say selective hyperopia, where
that I wouldn't know what you said.
Hyperopia is a condition where things that seem to be quite close are blurred, and we are not able to see them clearly because they are very close. An example of such things that are very close is when James Orengo and Amolo Otiende, who are members of parliament in the Senate and in the National Assembly, get somewhere in Luo Nyanza and they start blaming and blasting certain civil servants who they say are trying not just to frustrate BBI, but also to frustrate Raila Odinga from ascending to power because they have apparently shut down the BBI secretariat and taken the activities to the office of president, and that these people are now the deep state and they are going to use the BBI to scuttle Raila Odinga's ambitions to ascend to power. And I think increasingly we are seeing more and more people from that fraternity echoing those sentiments. Amolo Otiende is captured on camera telling this country that they are going to return it to where it was in January 2018 unless people stop frustrating Raila Odinga's ambitions to ascend to power. It is also true that Parliament is going to be meeting on Fool's Day. Mark that, on Fool's Day, April 1, to discuss the report of JLAC on their proposed referendum on the bill as it gets before the House. And I'm getting a little worried about that fact. It's also true, we have had you are telling us that it is a game of numbers and what numbers you're bringing on board. At the end of the day, these numbers are tribal numbers that everyone is therefore being encouraged very subtly and very quietly to go back to their base and to put together ethnic numbers, which they then bring on board. There is a certain kind of idiotization, zombification, if you want, of the tribal populations, in the sense that the tribes are not able to think on their own. They wait for certain individuals to come and tell them this is the way we go. And as I like saying, these people become owners of tribal populations, more or less the same way I own my old worn out shoes, which I can decide to give to my cousin or to throw away or to sell to Shubanandebe. I don't know whether Mheshimiwa Kioni knows what Shubanandebe.
I know that one. Yes.
Yeah, that man going around saying Shubanandebe Nairato, Nairato, you can give to you want. There is always the danger of creating and legitimizing the institution of tribal warlords. We must always never lose sight of the fact that we could be seeing tribal warlordism in its stage as puppyism. And this puppyism, the danger with the puppyism is that it always matures into dogmatism. If we have a puppyism of warlordish nature, the danger that one of these days it is going to mature into ethnic dogmatism is very real. Last, Linda and Mheshimiwa, Raila Odinga has always told us that whenever you see a dog barking, please seek not to address the dog, seek to address the owner of the dog. And therefore, when I see in the manner of speaking, the barking of James Orengo, of Amolo Tiende, of a whole raft of other ODM best MPs, talking about their man being frustrated, talking even about the possibility that they could cooperate with the Deputy President William Ruto suddenly from nowhere. Then I started getting very worried that this country does not seem to believe in anything. These are people who have gone all over the place, moving from post to pillar, from pillar to post and back again, demonizing the deputy president. Then suddenly, we are hearing that they could work together towards 2022. And one is wondering, is the former prime minister about to condemn reggae? Is he about to tell his soldiers to get to parliament and to tell Kenyans that some satanic verses were added into the BBI bill? You remember Salman Rushdie? Salman Rushdie happened a little while back, and being the kind of Philistine nation we have allowed ourselves to be, there are people who may not remember him. He published in the early 90s a book titled The Satanic Verses, and it put him in a lot of trouble. The Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was still alive, and he issued a fatwa against him. And Salman Rushdie suggested that certain verses had been inscribed into the Quran at night while Allah and the angels were asleep. And therefore, those verses dilute the holy book of the Islamic community. By the same token, is it possible that in the next few days we are going to be hearing that while we slept, somebody came and inscribed satanic verses in the BBI? Even Jesus Christ has talked about a man who planted wheat, and at night as he slept, some fellow came and threw in the weeds. In the particular case of Jesus Christ, they say that the farmer had to grow together. Yeah. And
I am wondering what you did when you were away for a week with this maneno of Chuga Nandebe. And
I am thinking of telling him to make sure that he will be taking the same breakfast.
Let me say that one of the things that I believe that Raila Amolo Odinga will not want not passed is the BBI. It's part of his legacy. It's part of President Uhuru's legacy, and this is a thing that they will be proud of as Kenyans. Raila Amolo Odinga is now one of the old members of the political elite that we have in the country. I don't know whether there is another older person who has been as active as him. So I believe that at that point in age, you would want to leave a legacy of this nature that that fashions the country going forward in a way, or even perhaps long after you are done with active political career. And like I've said, I don't think there's any better way than influencing some aspects of constitutional amendments, or giving a country a new constitution, or such things that last a little longer than 10, 15, 20 years. So I don't see him walking away from the BBI. Certainly his troops will want to get as much as possible from the government, from the executive, from His Excellency, through the BBI movement, not in way of holding anybody at ransom, but something akin to that. They must milk the best that they can out of the BBI movement or the BBI movement, and I wouldn't blame them for that. The frustrations that you are seeing, perhaps coming from the team of ODM in the name of Senator Olengo and Mheshimiwa Otiende Omoro, those outbursts, in my opinion, are the things that it actually shows that the president has succeeded in doing what I've just said, in ensuring that none of the key political players use BBI for political mobilization. In the past, we have used the constitution to mobilize our political base and pursue and push, advance our political careers. This is not the case during this BBI. And it is not the case for those who are supporting BBI. It is not the case for those who are opposing BBI. Remember, the ones who are opposing the BBI have completely been unable to form a no, like it was during the last constitution. When there was a no campaign, it helped people advance their political career, radicalize their base, come up with a political grouping that would support whatever it is that they support. This has not been the case, and it has been scattered by the president and his team, and we must commend him for that. Every grouping, including where the two of us here, or the three of us today, our leader is Rida. Because if Rida was not there, perhaps you will not be seeing the kind of good mannerism that you are seeing between me and my senior with the very senior words in the dictionary. You can see the books behind him there. Must be putting some of these vocabularies as we go for this commercial break to mesmerize. And he's achieved that so far.
He's a communications expert.
I was saying that in every grouping leader, there must be a leader, and you are the leader for this grouping. So whether it is a tribal grouping, whether it is a company that has come together, there must be somebody who comes out as the leader. Unfortunately, when we meet as people coming from the same constituencies, region, we end up being coming from the same ethnic background, and the leader who emerges from there will then choose to call him a tribal leader or a leader of that group, who can then be elevated to the status of a national leader. And it's a route that we cannot be able to run away from. And I want to, you remember, even in our preamble, when we did our own constitution, we said proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity. Ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity. And determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible sovereign nation. That is our constitution that recognizes that, yes, we are diverse because of our ethnicity, of our cultural backgrounds, of our religious backgrounds, and those groupings will have to have a leader. And I admire the Luo community. They don't shy away from having Raila Amolo Odinga as their leader. They have not called him a tribalist. What he has done is he has gone out of his area to try and bring more than just the rules into his political party. And I believe that is what even other leaders must do. So when you stand there and call every other grouping a tribal grouping, it could also be because you are unable to attract anybody else outside your own community. And you should not badmouth others who have started, who are identified as leaders in their backyard, in their regions, and have been able to go and carry a national following. And I believe that is what we should do. And even when you are forming parties, we should start from that platform that we want to reach out. But I am a member of parliament for Daragwa, predominantly a Kikuyu speaking constituency, and I aspire to be a national leader beyond perhaps what we have done before. That when somebody starts and calls me a tribalist, again, I don't think Barack, my good friend, will be quite accurate in that. I don't think that is the way we must look at it. And again, I think crucially is that it's good to recognize that we will be coming from different ethnic backgrounds, and we will always be struggling and working very hard to ensure that we don't carry a tribal tag. But people, every time perhaps you look like you are getting more than others are getting, you should be ready to be called a tribalist.
And hold it right there. Let's come to Barack, and I hope that this question you'll also ponder in. The Mount Kenya region has constantly maintained that, in all plans of setting up a political move, there has to be, a stake that is set aside for them. And even as these leaders are mark timing in trying to form, coalitions, or, in preparation of forming coalitions after the aspect of the BBI, President Uhuru Kenyatta also being seen as one of the people who's cheering them up. It looks as though the Kikuyus seem not to be big beneficiaries in these, at least evident coalitions that we see today. Do you suppose then that he is disinheriting, the central region, and can he in the first place?
To place that in context, Linda, I go to Sagana. And we've had a series of Sagana meetings. Mm-hmm. And before that, we had a series of Limuru meetings. The Limuru meetings, the most memorable one in the year 2012, we had a number of leaders from the Mount Kenya region gathering at a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta was the leader of KANU, and they were telling him that please form a party, we will vote for you in that party, and a number of experiments were attempted. Whichever way we look at it, that eventually that party became the National Alliance, the truth of the matter remains that TNA became a Kikuyu Mount Kenya party. Mm-hmm. Whether we of the present generation will feel unhappy about this pronouncement or not, whether we will embrace it or not, it was not like the KANU party that was formed in 1960, bringing together people like James Gishuru, Tom Mboya, Oginga Odinga, Joseph Murumbi, and others, in what was a party that had a semblance of a national appearance. That in a point of truth, the president has met people from the Mount Kenya region, leaders from the Mount Kenya region in Sagana, and spoken to them in mother tongue about the BBI, without also going to the Lake Basin to hold a meeting of a similar nature with the leaders, elected leaders, nominated leaders of the National Assembly, of the Senate, of the county assemblies, to say to them the same things that he has said in central Kenya, in Sagana. Jesus Christ, when he went back to Nazareth, he was told, do also here in your own home in Nazareth what we have heard that you have been doing in Jerusalem and Galilee and in those other places. Here we can even attempt to place that petition on its head and say to the head of state, do here also in the Lake Basin that which we heard that you did in the Mount Kenya region. We have not seen him going to Turkana for 3 days to speak to the leaders of that area on the BBI, nor has he gone to the coast or to any other part of the country in Rift Valley to do the same. And it is here that we must start accepting that the challenge starts raising its head, because it's a challenge that is driven from the very top, where things are seen through ethnic prisms. Mm-hmm. It suffices for the president to call a couple of governors from a certain region to have a conversation with them on important national issues, whether those issues are the BBI or they are about formation of regional parties, as some have suggested, or whether it is about COVID. Why would the head of state find that he should assemble leaders, the entire leadership of Mount Kenya region, barring a few who are seen to be bad potatoes, and talk to them about COVID-19, mm-hmm. but he is not able to do the same with leaders from Luhyaland, where obviously I was born and brought up. So we need to start accepting these kinds of things. About Raila Odinga and the Constitution and his legacy. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter even if the constitutional dispensation in this country were to remain where it is today for another 500 years, Raila Odinga would be remembered as one of the principal architects of the Constitution of Kenya. Mm-hmm. And let us also stop lying to ourselves that there are efforts to improve the Constitution. I know that whenever you point out any one element within the proposed draft Constitution within the 2020 bill, and you say this one here could be varied, we conclude that you are one of those who are opposed to the BBI. It is a rather narrow way of interpreting dissent, mm-hmm. interpreting alternative opinion. It is a reductionist way of reducing things to simple formulas, and social dynamics may not be reduced to single formulas where it is us versus them, yes versus no. Is it not possible that even as people agree that we are moving in the same general direction, we could also agree that a different route within that general direction would have been better for us? So that when we look at the BBI bill and say, let us do something about the ombudsman, when we say something like this removal of the role of parliament in vetting presidential appointees is not a good thing, when we say something to the effect that you have forgotten to address electoral reform in this BBI, is it possible to bring it on board? They say, no, you are the ones who are opposing, but you are not bold enough to lead a no campaign. I've seen my children sometimes when there's football on TV, they say to one another that that is your team. Mm-hmm. One takes his, which he believes is the tough one, and tries to force the other one to take a team and say, hiyo ni yako. And then they tell them, oh, now we are leading. And somewhere, even in the middle of the stream, they can change and say, oh, now the other one is yours. We should not play games with these kinds of things. We are talking about very serious issues. We are talking about a constitution that we want to leave to my grandchildren and to their grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. And therefore, if we were to be sincere for a moment, we would agree with ourselves that our focus is narrow, our horizon is very narrow, We are seeing things in the context of 2022, even when we do not accept that it is 2022 and the end, when all is said and done. Who are being railroaded to go back to their tribes, to mobilize ethnic numbers, to bring them at the table. We have forgotten why Kenyans have been fighting in the past. It has not been because the executive was not sufficiently populated with leaders from 5 tribes. It has not been because we did not have more constituencies. It has not been because 35 or 40 or 50% of the national revenue is not going to the counties. It has not been because MCAs do not have 2 million shillings to buy cars. Kenyans have fought at every election cycle because of perceptions that the presidential election has been stolen. If that is not addressed, and I'm putting it to you that it has not been addressed in the BBI bill, put this in your diary today. In 2022, there are going to be chaos in the country.
Well, God forbid, so we say.
We must slow down this reggae and ask ourselves, have we addressed the reason Kenya fight?
Can you allow me to come in?
Yes.
Proceed.
Yeah, so that is not a monologue.
And also you tell us the political plan of Mount Kenya region.
Lecturers are known to take a whole 45 minutes alone on the floor. And there
we had agreed that we're going to get a bell. It's just that you're on Skype.
I want to start where he has ended. That he talks about a narrow way of looking at issues, and I think if the way His Excellency and the former Prime Minister have looked at the issues of the Constitution Amendment are narrow, we want to say we are sorry for that. But those who think it's narrow have an opportunity again provided for in the Constitution to provide a one with a wider perspective so that we can improve this country. We all have a responsibility to ensure that we are in a better country tomorrow than it is today. And we must always credit and thank those who have been bold enough to take that small baby step, which I think is what the Prime Minister and the President have done in this BBI constitutional movement. Remember that this is a process that started way back in 2018, March of 2018, and an opportunity was availed to everybody to try and broaden this narrow perspective. But again, a few people chose to be idle around and only cry foul when I think it was when it's a little too late. And it is also not useful for us as leaders to sit by and wait for another cycle of violence come 2022 without attempting to do something. And these attempts have been made, I think, since 1992. We will still want to see those with better ideas putting them on the table instead of waiting for wars, waiting or vowing or giving us a blank check or assuring us that come 2022 we are going to fight. It's not a good way of offering leadership. In fact, it is. I think it's the opposite of what good leadership starts.
Mheshimiwa, allow me to ask this.
Allow me to just, he had the whole 20 minutes without my input.
So you want to counter him? All right, proceed.
Just half of what he said.
Okay.
So that I can answer his point by saying that he's talked about many of what has been provided for in the BBI, including presidential appointment and vetting. And we know, those of us who have been in parliament, what is happening now is that when we vet the PSs, they have a political loyalty within parliament, and that hinders their delivery of services to Kenyans. That is informed by that fact. He talks about elections, and elections again, it is in the minds of many and in the belief of many, including those in IBC and those leading political parties, that it is best done or provided for in statutes as opposed to having it in the constitution. He has talked of the office of the ombudsman that is being created at the judiciary. And I know he knows that this office was actually created by the first Chief Justice, Honorable Willy Mutunga. And he placed it at his own office, only for Maraga to come and remove it under the office of the Chief Justice. He threw it under the office of the Deputy Chief Justice, and then assigned it a junior officer, a magistrate. And a magistrate cannot be seen to question the work of a judge or the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. And what the BBI is doing is that it's making this office, which was created by Mutunga, a constitutional office, and giving it the same level of that of a judge, so that when there is a question that needs to be asked of a judge, it's not being asked by a junior. It is somebody who can be able to hold the other judge and question him and not feel intimidated by his high office. And I think it's important to us to know that today, if you have missing files, you have cases that are not being heard, the only person you have to look for a way of going to the registry, and there is no other office you can lodge your complaint. This office will help Kenyans know where they can go to lodge their complaints. He talks about Raila Amolo Odinga having a hand in the 2010 constitution, and it's true. The history is already there that he played a key role since 1992 up to 2010, giving us a new constitution of 2010, and we must thank him for it. And I think we must again see how great a leader he is, that he even sees the need to introduce amendments to even improve it, make it better for us when he still can be able to command a good political following. And I must tell you that to do that requires a big heart for the country, a measure of patriotism. So I wouldn't want to badmouth his attempt or even to belittle what he is doing. And there comes in, after that he talks about the issues of Sagana. But before Sagana, let me set the record straight. The meeting of Lemuru 2012, which I attended, and I was I was part of the people who organized that meeting, had very little to do with the running of Uhuru. And I can tell you that 10 times. That meeting was heavily involved by the issues of ICC. We had Uhuru heading to the ICC, and the question was that why is it that he is going to the ICC? What is this that he did in terms of the crashes that we had in 2012 that would make him go to the ICC without us understanding? Because we suffered the most during the 2007 clashes. The community, the Mount Kenya community suffered the most. Of course, even other communities really suffered, but we lost many people. Property was burned that belongs to the Kikuyus and all those kind of things. And the ICC issue was the center of the 2012 meeting. And I can tell you, Uhuru himself said he does not want us to discuss anything else. He wants to inform us what is it that he is going to do at the ICC, because there was a section of the Kikuyus who were telling him, don't leave the country. And we needed to ask ourselves, what does this mean? And I think you may need to call us for another day to discuss that issue, because it had a lot to do with even the Mau Mau movement. All those things came into play, and it was a very bitter movement for us as a community, because we were seeing like this is another time that another round that the Muzungus are trying to persecute us. It was, remember, we went through a genocide of 1948 when we lost 200,000 Kikuyus during the Mau Mau. This time we had lost about 1,000 people. This kind of thing, and it's a thing that were there at 2012. So when I hear that fact being misrepresented, I think that makes me a little irritated, and because it's not something I want to remember.
And perhaps I'll have
go back
make
to
it
Kanu
brief.
now. He has talked about Kanu. He has talked about TNA, and he has talked about Jubilee. The fact about Kanu was formed by Kikuyus and mainly and Luos back in 1963, only for the minority tribes led by Moi to to abandon Kandu and come into Kanu. So just like TNA, you will always see that a party is formed by a predominant group. Others will join in. And so when you say that TNA is a tribal, is a Kikuyu thing, even Kanu was. And eventually, it was grown to become a national party. Okay. And I believe that there is nothing wrong with people forming a party. What we are now saying in our constitution is try and not form it on a tribal basis. Form it from a national platform. Right. But look at it. Even Kanu was formed and others came to enjoy it and even used it to mismanage us for a whole 24 years. And I think it is important to know that it was important for Uhuru to call the Sagana meeting. Because the deputy prime minister had completely
mismanaged. Well, make it brief so at least Dr. Rican as well.
Yes.
Right.
In fact, Barack, you sounded as long as I am when you were speaking. Clearly, you know that you have spoken for so long. But let me just conclude by saying this. The Sagana meeting was very important and very crucial for us. And it is people from that region who wanted it because they wanted to ask the political leaders, why is it that you are mismanaging the political affairs of that region? And our noise-making levels were so high that even managing the country was becoming difficult for President Uhuru. Mm-hmm. So it may have been a Kikuyu speaking thing, and people themselves actually instructed the president to address them in Kikuyu because he said, these are issues that affect us. We are the ones that are misbehaving. We are the ones that are insulting the presidency. We need our political leaders brought to book or brought to order. So no apologies for the Sagana meeting, and I believe that if other community, by the way, he actually promised that he will be calling other communities to Sagana or any other similar thing to again go through and ask, where is it that we went wrong?
All right.
So, let's not badmouth the community when it comes together. And when we use our mother tongue to speak, I mean...
So there are plans set for this because evidently it looks like there's no kingpin in this particular region. Well, anyway, as we come to a close, gentlemen, it's been quite a tight one here, almost hard for me to interject. Barack, as we close it.
Yes, first of all...
Remember he opened.
Linda, first of all...
Make it brief so at least then Mheshimiwa can close it for us.
But you are taking my time, Linda, by giving me what is a redundant piece of advice on how I should manage the time. I'll make it brief. I'm always very brief. The first thing, Linda, is that I choose my words with caution. You have not heard me use value-loaded words like bad-mouthing, because that does not help to move towards the kind of cohesion that we thirst for. But Linda, when people hold a meeting, be it in Limuru, be it in Sagana, and they address what would be national agenda or a significant portion thereof in languages that we do not understand, we can only proceed on the basis of that which is reported to us by those who have been eyewitnesses of those meetings. Linda, as you know, I'm a Christian gentleman, and I've read where Luke, the author of the gospel, says, as it was reported to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses of these accounts, it seemed good to me to give you an orderly account of the things that happened. And it seems good to me also to give an orderly account of the things that have happened in my country from independence through Limuru 1, Limuru 2, Limuru 3, and to recognize that they have always addressed issues in partisan prisms. Limuru 1 was a meeting that was held in a language that we can understand. The principal architects of that meeting in 1966 were Tom Mboya, Jomo Kenyatta, Charles Njonjo, and Mwai Kibaki. And of course, regardless that there was that kind of initiative, it also ended up splitting the country into ethnic enclaves, where the position of vice chair of the KANU party was split into 8 pieces, and each region was supposed to elect a vice chair, and the position had previously been held by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. In other words, the notion of ethnic kingpins, ethnic regional supremacists was hatched in Limuru. The 2012 meeting, my brother is too quick to take umbrage, to feel aggrieved, and to say I am misrepresenting the meetings and what went on. If a meeting goes on in languages that I do not understand, as I said, I have got to wait and hear from those who have been there, who understand those languages. And what they told us, and which you can check in the national annals, in the press of that season, was that the people, including religious leaders, Christians like myself, they told one of their own that you form a party, and on the platform of this party, we will elect you. Whether that was their way of dealing with the ICC affair that has been allusively mentioned by the Honorable Member of Parliament, I do not know. I will still wait for some others who are there to come and their own interpretation. I'll place their various versions on the weighing scales of analysis. And within that prism, I will also remember Honorable John Michuki, God rest his soul in eternal peace, telling us that yeyote anayetaka kufanya biashara ya kisiasa na sisi wa Kikuyu ni lazima apitie kwa Uhuru Muigai wa Kenyatta, na kama wewe ufanye hivyo, sisi tutatwanga wewe kisiasa. So since you want to stop me, first I think it is very pejorative to refer to anybody as minority tribes. We are Kenyans. We are trying to move towards being a Kenyan nation, and it is pejorative for people to dismissively look at us as minor tribes. We are not minor tribes. We are Kenyans. We have the right of space, the right to be heard. When people went to Lancaster,
as we close, Dr.
62, they went there trying to legitimize our remaining in that project that is called Kenya, regardless of our size. One of the options we had in 1960-62 was, of course, to choose to be part of Uganda, to choose to be part of Tanzania, to choose to be independent. And people must never forget that, even as they look at their so-called huge numbers and sizes.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Some bad news, sad news getting into our desks this morning. The demise of Mama Sarah Obama. Yes, Mama Sarah Obama has passed on this morning. We'll be giving you details of what could have informed this. Mama Sarah Obama is the grandmother to former United States President Barack Obama. May her soul rest in eternal peace. Sincere condolences. Yes, she is the grandmother, yes, to former U.S. President Barack Obama. So we'll be giving you details as to what has culminated as we proceed with the broadcast. Mheshimiwa, I can only allow you 1 minute maximum.
Yes, to say that I think it is clear in the minds of all of us that any meeting that is held in this country, whether held in Kikuyu, Luya, Zoruo, Gariama, will eventually get to be understood by Kenyans as to what transpired, because as we go on, we are getting closer, and these languages are not as foreign as they were back in 1960. So I am not, when people hold a meeting and speak in their mother tongue, these days to me it means very true, as perhaps a little earlier it may have worked, but in any case that is being recognized in our constitution. Two, I believe that the minority tribes have a right, just like those majority tribes, and that's why we have a minority leader in parliament, we have a majority leader in parliament. These positions exist, and when positions for one group are articulated well, The other group should not start feeling unhappy. They should not get unhappy. We should just accept to live on as a community and agree. And three, even if Lemuru 2, 3, 4 agreed to form a political party, again, I don't see any climb in it. Mishuki is saying that if you want to talk through Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, again, nothing criminal about it. I talked about groups and the need for leadership in every group. If there is no leadership, then you are not able to deal with a group. And that's why some communities are also encouraged to be able to have that leadership. If you come to the constituency of Daragwa and there is no leader called Kioni, then you'll not be able to engage with the people of Daragwa. You'll have public participation and eventually you need to have a leader.
All right.
So these things, what Baraka has said is that what we did is correct and we should be encouraged to do it in a bigger way, because in doing it, we help the stability and the unity of this country. Thank you.
Well, that one is subject to debate. I guess we're going to proceed with the same conversation next week. We still had much that we want to touch on.
Yes, on that passing on.
Yes, indeed. Once again, like Waishimi was saying, we have received reports of the demise of Mama Sarah Obama, who's the grandmother to former U.S. President Barack Obama. We'll be giving you details as to what has culminated as and when they hit our desk. But for now,